Hello folks, welcome to the show. Welcome to the channel. I'm happy you're here and happy to talk about this because if you know who I am, you know that as much as I'm planning to talk about this without bias, I am an Oilers fan and I have, if you'd like, talked about each game individually already on this channel. But this is going to be talking about it as a series, kind of a breakdown of what happened, where the Oilers will go from here, and where the Kings will go from here. So, a bit of history between the two teams. Recent history, I mean, lots of history between the two teams, but recent history as well. 2 years ago, the Oilers beat the Kings in 7. Last year, they beat the Kings in 6. And this year, they beat the Kings in 5. So, next year, we'll see the Oilers sweep the Kings, probably, at this rate. I wouldn't mind that as an Oilers fan, but we'll see. I don't like tempting fate either. Because when you beat a team enough, eventually they're going to beat you. But Kings only beat the Oilers once this time. They won game 2. The first game was very much in the Oilers' favor. They outshot the Kings when won 7-4. The second game, the Oilers kind of came in. I think they're a little cocky, is my feeling. I think the fans really didn't get under the Kings' skin. They kind of encouraged the Kings accidentally. The Oilers fans, I mean. I just felt like we don't need to give them encouragement, guys, and we did. And again, I'm not blaming the game on the Oilers fans. It's just I don't think they helped. So the Kings won game 2 in Edmonton in overtime, 5-4. So they're heading back to LA with the series tied. If they have a chance of beating the Oilers, they can do it. Well, they dropped the next 2 games. They lost in a dominating fashion 6-1 to the Oilers. Then they dominated the Oilers but still lost 1-0 in game 4 before the Oilers won a close battle at home 4-3. Over the course of the series, the Oilers offense was, as usual, on display. They averaged over 4 goals a game, limiting the Kings to 2.6 goals per game. Though the shots were mostly even, the shooting percentage, as you can tell by the scoring, was very much in the Oilers' favor. Part of that was because of high-danger opportunities. The Oilers had a ton of high-danger opportunities. They allowed an average amount, I would say, of 7.2 per game, but they had 9.8 in their favor and converted there as well quite a bit. They blocked more. The Kings did hit more this time. I'll come back to that. Faceoffs were mostly even, but the real game changer was the special teams. The Kings were 0 for 12 on the power play, whereas Edmonton was 9 for 20. And it could have been 11 for 20 because in Game 5, 2 of the Oilers' goals came just seconds after a power play of theirs had ended. So that was the real big change there, in my opinion. I will want to give credit to the Kings for hitting more this series. I've always considered them weaker and not capable hitters. And this time they did hit more, and I think that did help them in games. It's just their offense wasn't as good as it had been in recent years, particularly due to a trade with Winnipeg. And the Oilers' defense was exceptionally better than it had been in recent years, just to make it worse on the Kings, especially because of the trade that involved Nashville Predators. Yeah, the Oilers in all categories except for hits per shot against, which is a way of measuring how much you have to fight through this team to get a shot on them. The Oilers dominated in all these stats that I chose, which are the same stats I choose for every series. It's not like I'm nitpicking here. The Oilers really just were in control the whole time. I know some Kings fans will say, well, they were in control of the refs too. If they were, it was just one game, and you were down 3-1 at that point. And really, I don't think the refing was, I think, not good. I don't think it was up to acceptable standards. I don't think it influenced the game too much. Both teams got power plays that probably shouldn't have had. I didn't keep track of all the power plays that were undeserved or whatever. Edmonton did have 8 more power plays than the Kings, but the Kings were more undisciplined than the Oilers. That's also true. Like I said, I think both teams had more power plays than they probably deserved. But at the end of the day, if Kings had 8 more power plays. Who knows if they would have scored on any one of them, because they didn't score on any 12 of the ones they had, whereas the Oilers scored on 9 of the 20 they had. That's an incredible rate, especially when you consider the Kings' penalty kill was one of the best this year. It was league leading for most of the year until the Hurricanes took over in the last 2 weeks. The Kings' penalty kill had been very good against the Oilers throughout the course of the regular season, but when it came down to it in the playoffs, the Oilers' power play had their way with the Kings. And again, like I said, if you really want, you can look at the Oilers' as power play as being above 50%, because a couple of the power plays that of theirs that were killed, they scored on just seconds after. So, we'll start with the Oilers about going forward. Going forward, they are playing the Vancouver Canucks. That will come with a different video that I will do tonight, previewing the series, and all my thoughts on that. As for roster construction, the Oilers got to be pretty happy. A lot of people didn't like their trade deadline acquisitions, thought that they were underwhelming, but I liked them. I liked Henrique and Carrick. I like getting those two, and they've been a lot better than I could have hoped for too. They were both noticeable in the series. Henrique obviously more than Carrick, and I actually can see them both being re-signed to the Oilers, depending on their pay desires. So Oilers, like I said, got to be happy with pretty much everything on their roster. Even defense, they were pretty good. They had some hiccups, consistency issues, but were otherwise quite good. Goaltending, Skinner. Skinner was absolutely a story. He had a questionable game 1, but it was okay. He had a bad game 2, really bad game 2. And then in the next 2 games, he allowed only 1 goal, and that 1 goal was a backdoor one-timer, so it was pretty hard to save anyways. Game 5, he was exceptional. Wasn't too good, but it wasn't bad at all. So, you're happy with his performance there. So Oilers are quite happy with how they did, and we'll look forward to upsetting the Canucks and reminding them of who we are, hopefully. As for the Kings and their roster construction, that has been under scrutiny with the Kings' moves in the last few years. They had one of the most enviable prospect pools a couple of years ago, and since then they've traded out some of those young guys for trades that haven't really been great. Like Fiala in the Kings, yeah, that's been good. Brock Faber in Minnesota, wow, that's been amazing. They moved on from Sean Durzi, who's emerged as top defenseman for the Coyotes, and most notably was the trade with Winnipeg that happened, where they gave away 2 good mid-6 forwards, who, might probably wouldn't have changed the series, but the guy they got in return and paid a ton of money, Dubois, absolutely did not change the series and was not noticeable. Velarde had been noticeable before. The reason I knew him so well is because he scores on the Oilers, you know what I mean, not as an Oiler, but he scores on us quite a bit. So I was quite happy when he went to the Jets. So that's absolutely going to come under fire. My opinion on a lot of their roster construction is it's just they made a lot of moves too soon, I think, and now a lot of their prospects are, not a lot, but there's some notable prospects that they had that have now developed elsewhere, and in return the Kings are once again bounced from the first round by the same old, well, not same old, but the same Edmonton Oilers. It's a different and better Oilers team, sure, and I don't think there is any, there isn't any disrespect or dishonor in losing to the Oilers, who are a lot of people's Cup's favorites, but it's got to be annoying that's happened 3 years in a row now, and that you haven't shown any progress in the playoffs at all. Maybe next year they play against a team that isn't the Oilers and then win a round. Maybe that's all they need. They just got to stop losing to the Oilers, because the Oilers have been a very good playoff team for the last few years. But that's all up to speculation. The other part I want to talk about with the Kings was goaltending. Goaltending was a surprise strength for the LA Kings this year. A lot of people suspected that entering the year with Cam Talbot, who hadn't been a great starter for a few years now, and backing up was a variant of Cal Peterson, who was eventually traded to Philadelphia. They had Dave Rittich, who a lot of people didn't really believe in, me neither, but had a great year, and we'll talk about him. Who was the other guy? Oh, Phoenix Copley. He got injured soon. So there wasn't much reason to believe in the Kings tandem, and yet that proved to be one of their strengths. Goalies have backup seasons all the time. That's why you can't overlook them. Talbot especially. Well, Rittich did too. He had a great backup or return to form year as well. But when it came to the playoffs, I really think that switching from Talbot to Rittich hurt the Kings. I don't think it would have changed the series if they kept Talbot. It might have still ended in 5, but I do think it hurt them. Rittich came in Game 4 because they're like, okay, well, Edmonton just scored 6 goals on us in Game 3. Surely that's all Talbot's fault. But, well, maybe that's not the thoughts of Jim Hiller, the coach. I never talked to the guy, but it wasn't Talbot's fault letting in those 6 goals. There wasn't a single one of those that I felt were Talbot's fault. And Talbot made a lot of saves I didn't think he could make in that game. And despite that, they benched Talbot. Part of that might be as a wake-up call to the Kings to say, hey, you just got this goalie benched or whatever. Or hoping for some change or some miracle. And which is a questionable strategy. It's always been questionable to switch goalies in the playoffs. It's only been more of a recent phenomenon. But I don't think they should have done it because Talbot was playing very well. He had a bad Game 1, but Game 2 and 3, I thought he did really well. I actually think 3 was, and if you look at the analytics, Game 3, despite allowing 6 goals, was actually one of his better games. That's just how bad the Kings defense was. And then the Kings defense played very well in front of Rittich in Game 4, and Rittich only allowed 1 goal. So you could say, okay, well, Rittich had a good game. Yeah, but how would have Talbot done? And in Game 5, Rittich didn't have a good game. I don't think he had a good game. He allowed 4 goals on 26 shots, so not a good save percentage, and I do think some of them were kind of weak. And so I do think LA might have even won that game if Talbot was in. Might have even won Game 4 if Talbot was in, if it went the same way that they did with Talbot in the net. I mean, played the same way, not necessarily goals against kind of thing, right? I mean, it's hard to stop a Bush bomb, which was a lone goal in Game 4, so, right? But that's just kind of my thinking, is I thought it was a mistake to go to Rittich when I thought Talbot was playing really well. And kind of wanted, I think Talbot would have really enjoyed kicking the Oilers out of the series after, it's been a while now since he's been on the Oilers, so I don't think those feelings are there of revenge, but the Oilers fans taunted him quite a bit in Game 2, and I think that was part of him playing well in Game 2, and played really well in Game 3, and I think he would have really liked to remind all of us Oilers fans what he used to do for us, and he didn't get that chance. Well, he did, but at the end of the day, he was benched, and Rittich came in, but again, if Talbot was still there, I don't really think that would have meant the Kings won the series. So at the end of the day, Oilers win the series in 5. Oilers move on for an all-Canadian matchup against Vancouver Canucks, which will come in another video, as I said. And the Kings are once again at the drawing board about how do you beat the Oilers, which can be a dangerous game because if you start planning for one team in the playoffs, you might not play them. Vancouver Canucks did that after they lost to the Boston Bruins. They started constructing their team on beating the Bruins. And they did beat the Bruins in the regular season. But then they lost in the playoffs because they didn't build themselves to win the playoffs, just to beat Boston. And so we'll see what decisions they make. That's all in the future. And also in the future, there's more videos from me that you'll see more. So subscribe and turn on notifications. I'd also really appreciate it if you like the video, if you think I've earned it, of course, and comment your thoughts down below. I have more videos to come out about previews and reviews as we move into round 2, as well as a lot of trophy news that I got to get to that's been on the back burner. Anyways, that's it for now, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.